Hey, what is up, guys? This is Mr. T coming at you live from NYC. Welcome back to Convos, our podcast over here at TimTalks. And hey, welcome back to another episode. So, before I begin, like I said, I want to thank you guys so much again for your support. As we continue to build up the channel, you guys are doing an awesome job, saying your opinions, getting the word out there, helping the podcast grow. And, again, this really means a lot to me, especially just because, I want to give you guys something out there to look forward to. Again, just to let the truth out there, let it be known, and for the world to hear, and for everyone out there to at least just have hope and inspiration. That someone's out there to help you guys, right? So again, thank you guys so much again, for all your support. And like I said before, I'm gonna go ahead and tell what the topic is today. So I'm centering today on cancel culture. Now, I'm gonna be honest. This is new to me. I ever since I heard this term, and that was just like what, a couple of days ago. It's the first time I heard the term cancel culture. Now I've heard of pop culture, ethnic culture, those cultures, right? The traditional ones, but I never actually understood what cancel culture is. In fact, I even had to ask Google for help, and even Siri at one point, just because I wanted to, be in the know and just try to understand what it is. But then this person's comment, it didn't really touch on mental health, but whoever left this, the reason why I was kind of curious is just because it didn't sound like this person had a problem, but then again, whoever left the comment, might be implying, or they just don't want to say it to me. And I understand. I'm gonna try and interpret it in the best way that I can. And whoever left the comment out there, if I misinterpreted in some way, again, I apologize. But I'm gonna try as much as possible to try and analyze what the heck cancel culture is. And I know that it's related to the new gen. Not even the new gen. I know it happened before in the past, and I know that it's coming back now because of all the controversies and all that stuff, right? So again, I apologize if I misinterpret what this term is. I'm gonna do my best. I'm not gonna look it up. Just gonna try and remember what I remembered on Google, and see where we can go from there. Okay. So the comment here is this. So Mr. T, have y'all heard of something called cancel culture? I know it has something to do with pushing people away for something bad they did. Kind of like what happened with Will Smith. And you guys already know what happened with him, right? But is pushing someone away, even justified? Should you push someone away because of one mistake, right? So that's what the person left me. And so I'm gonna give my interpretation. So for any of you guys out there who doesn't know what cancel culture is, so cancel culture is, say you got this one person who did something awful, did something shizzy, did something crappy, and then from there, that person attracts the controversy, and many people out make put him or her as an outcast. Basically, they shun her, if you want to use the Amish term, and then they ridicule, they put up all these things about that person, and just try and push him away from society. That's basically it. And so cancel culture, basically revolves around the idea of, hey, if we push away this person, if we resort to having to, kind of ostracize, force him out of the limelight, because of something that's bad, that a majority of people agree on, and then you push him out, that's cancel culture. So that's basically it in a nutshell. I don't remember exactly what Google and Siri told me, but that is the best that I can interpret it as. So looking at the person's comment, right? So cancel culture, I'm assuming what this person, he or she kind of referenced Will Smith. So if you guys don't know what happened with Will Smith, again, it's okay. I am in the know about that one. So with Will Smith, what I remember is that he had slapped Chris Rock, a comedian, at the Oscars, or I'm not sure what kind of competition it was. I believe it was the Grammys or the Oscars, or the Academy Awards. So I'm pretty sure that was the Oscars last year. And so what happened there was Chris Rock had made this joke which was rather offensive to his wife, to Will Smith's wife, about a condition that affected her hair. I believe it's called aphasia. Guys, don't call me out if it's wrong. Again, you can go look it up as well. But basically, so Chris Rock had made fun of that condition, but not necessarily made fun, more of just jokingly. But then, to of course, Will Smith, he didn't take it lightly, and then from there, he proceeded to slap him right in front of the audience, and warn him about having made Chris Rock about having made that comment, right? Not to do that again, all that stuff. And then the cancel culture effect took place. So what happened was he was banned from the Academy Awards for I think a period of 10 years, and his fans, some were on his side, and then some were divided, by the issue. So on the one end, you have the group that was for Will Smith, and then they were saying how because of the comment that was made, which was offensive, he was justified in slapping Chris Rock. He didn't resort to beating him up. And honestly, in my opinion, I don't think he would have done that. Just given a fair warning. And so that's the claim made by those who had supported him. And on the opposing group, the divided group, they basically said, can they not have taken that conversation backstage, not in front of the audience, right? So that is an issue where cancel culture is kind of conflicted, because on the one hand, you got this offensive comment that shouldn't have been made, especially if that person knows the condition of the one who he knows and he does care about, right? So again, putting that little that quirk, again, doesn't necessarily mean it translates to something that should be told out in the spotlight for everyone to hear, right? So there's that. And on the other hand, you know, proceeding to slap someone right in front of an audience, it doesn't equate to solving a solution. In fact, it just attracts more controversy, right? Whether it be for the one who did the slap or the one who was on the receiving end. Again, that is not necessarily the case where, for example, it would be the right thing, right? And especially in the professional world, again, guys be guys. Honestly, we resort to violence, and I agree. I get those kind of tendencies sometimes if I'm ever pissed off at something or someone or whatever. It's just like nature, and that I can't argue with either. With the reaction. In fact, I kind of expected it as I watched the replay of it that one day. And then going back to it again, I felt that literally it was going to be expected. I don't want to say if it's deserved or not. It's just that I expected that kind of reaction knowing who the people are involved, right? I mean, you got Will Smith and then you got Chris Rock. I mean, literally, Will Smith was in Men in Black, and then you got Chris Rock, who was, I can't even say. I know he's a comedian, but I know I can't really say what it was that he is, apart from, being a comedian. But either way, that's how cancel culture was. And the fact that people tend to resort to collectively saying and dissing another person because of this one act, which again, that I understand, right? So that's probably why this person, again, back to the comment, he or she left this. So again, bringing up Will Smith, and I don't want to raise any suggestions about my opinions on that, because on one end there is the for and then there's the against, right? And to be honest, both parties look as though that something was seriously wrong on both ends of their behaviors, right? And the thing is with cancel culture, there's little room for compromise, right? So you got those people who really just want to take sides, and you're entitled to your opinion. And I believe that really, when you're looking at the behaviors, you can't really justify either, right? And so, if you take to one side or the other, that's fine, right? And if you feel that one way or another, whether you're for what happened or against what happened during that night, again, that's entirely your opinion. I mean, it wasn't you who was involved, but it's better to have it in the mind than to let it go beyond that, and then you bring up another argument about that, right? I mean, it's a controversy. And hate begets hate, right? You start hating, then you might incite something, and that's not even your problem, right? It was something that happened between two celebrities, and then you bring it up at home, and then you start an argument, and then it escalates. You know what I mean? So, really, That's the issue there. And that's the thing with cancel culture. On the one hand, I just want to highlight the pros and cons about it, right? So the pros is there are situations where it is very true. It is absolutely true where cancel culture comes into play, especially if you got things like anti-Semitism, racism, discrimination, violence, and all those things, right? So cancel culture really does come into play because it really depends on like the majority group, and most of the times when people resort to cancel culture, right, it's for really reasonable and understandable concerns, right? Take for example like anti-Semitism. We ain't hating on a certain group, right, or a certain religion, right, just because of certain things, right, because of historical context. That's not how it works, right? We didn't come this far just to go hating on the past, right? And again, this may not be agreeable to other people. That's fine. But if you really boil down to it, really, why hate on the past, right? Past is there, right? You got to learn from it. You got to move on, right? And then other things, for example, like racism, discrimination. Hey, we're all in the world, right? And no group is better than the other. Some may have more advantages, some groups may have more advantages, but really it depends more so on what opportunities were there for that certain group, right? You can't say discriminate against one who doesn't know they're not smart, they're not the right color, the right skin tone, the right race. Again, because really, if you really think about that, right? What for does that matter, right? When you got the same organs and all that, right? And for something to be discriminated against because of a color, right? So it's like saying I love red and you hate blue and whatever, right? You can see how kind of ridiculous that is, right? So just having that still there, and then for example, you got like gun violence and all that shit. I'm not gonna go in too deep with that because out of respect for those who are victims of it. And again, with that issue, really it boils down to rights and all that stuff, and I don't want to get too much into that. Honestly, when it comes down to the gun, whoever's for it, be ready to face it if you see it, right? And whoever's against it, just find other ways to defend yourselves. But anyway, back to cancel culture. Those are the kind of issues where the groups who see it the right way, cancel culture really lays it down that this is wrong and this has to be addressed. But that can also work the other way. If the wrong group is in the right, then those decisions and all that stuff, yeah, that starts to affect people, right? Affects people the wrong way and becomes a sort of awful negative bandwagon, right? And that sucks. It really does, right? So again, one pro and one con for both sides, right? Another thing about cancel culture, it also helps us to remember the things that are important, a pro of it, right? So cancel culture, you know, there are, society can suck at some points. That's true, right? But on the one hand, why are we still here, right? If you really think about it, why are we still here as a society if things didn't always work out, right? So there are things that did work out, right? So when it comes down to cancel culture, right? Again, it evolved, right? And just because, once again, it also helps us to highlight the things that are important, right? When it comes down to cancel culture, right? Not only just the things that are wrong, but also the things that are okay, right? Things that are acceptable. And a con of that is where cancel culture, again, if you highlight the wrong things, if you point out the wrong things, it can also get a shine in the spotlight, right? Which we want to like just push away, right? And there's this one other pro and con about cancel culture is that, again, those people who are underrepresented, and I'm not saying in terms of race or ethnicity, I'm talking about those who don't have a voice, or basically those who are afraid to have a voice, right? When it comes down to cancel culture, everyone can jump in, with their opinion, right? And know that, your voice can actually matter in something, right? For good or for bad, right? And so, when it comes down to cancel culture, again, it's a culture. And that means that when it comes down to the culture, it's not just by one person. In fact, a whole group represents, right? And cancel culture is adaptive, right? So when it comes down to other people, let's say you have someone who's advocating for measures for climate change, let's say that, right? And other people slowly join in and then contribute to the argument and contribute to making a change in that. That's what's good about cancel culture, is that other people with their own opinion and who may share it with another person who has a much louder voice, you can express it, right? And that's good because it gets down to other important issues, right? That's why, again, not with disregarding religion, disregarding politics. If we live in a world where we hinder those, literally that's what people would believe. And literally what I believe is that other people can have a voice with cancel culture. Again, you don't always have to be this big hotshot YouTuber, or you don't have to be this big hotshot influencer who can just influence the masses, right? Because again, culture, it's not just a person, it has to be with a group, right? That's how the culture is, and that's how it evolves, right? The same thing goes on the other hand, right? So again, those people who feel underrepresented, they might have a voice, but they might convince it for the wrong reasons, right? It boils down to cancel culture. The pros where it's shown to be the right thing, and the cons where the wrong people are put in a position that they can share their sadistic values or whatever, right? And that's the thing with cancel culture. And back to the comment the person left, right? Is pushing someone away even justified, right? So I'm gonna repeat that. So, is pushing someone away even justified? And that's a big a issue with cancel culture, right? Literally, it's a bandwagon, right? So, it's like in psychology we call it conformity, where people jump on the same thing, just and sometimes they don't even know, right? And then besides conformity, again, literally, it's like testimonies. For example, person who's famous, right? And then people back up that person, kind of like what happened with Will Smith, right? You got people for Will Smith, you got people for Chris Rock, and then cancel culture is just conflicting with the two, right? And even then, it doesn't become their issue anymore. Later on, it becomes the people outside, right, who joins in. And that's the thing. Do we gotta push someone away, and is that even justified? Now, I don't know why the person wrote this. So what I'm assuming, and I'm not, whoever left this comment again, I'm not jumping out and saying anything in pertinence to pointing out this issue, if there is an issue. But I think this person is just reflecting on the idea that, should we really push other people away? It's kind of like bullying, right? It can be digital, it can be physical, right? And with cancel culture, right, there's less of the physical but more of the mental, right? And that's just as worse, right? When it comes down to cancel culture, what's bad is that, for example, if everyone jumps in on the wrong thing, and by that time that person's already damaged and it's done, right? And the thing with cancel culture is that there's little memory. Like, it if it moves on, right, and the decision's made, it moves on, right? That's the thing with this culture, which again, it's kind of sad about, just because again, it highlights certain people, puts them in the limelight, and then the whole world influences what that person's going to become, for good or for worse, right? And that's what sucks with cancel culture, is that people can jump in on the wrong thing. But again, I'm not highlighting that it's completely bad, or it's completely good, because again, it had its own purposes, right? Just because of how adaptive cancel culture is. I'm not gonna get too technical with it, but it is a truth where people often take other people's opinions seriously, and that's how cancel culture works. Make it so that other people, or the one who's being put in the limelight, for good or for worse, changes that can fit the majority of the culture, right? And that's the biggest issue that I have with cancel culture, right? And then the person wrote here at the end, should you push someone away because of one mistake, right? Now, the thing is with cancel culture, I notice, is that let's take for example Hitler, right? And I'm gonna use him whether or not you love him or whatever, right? But I'm gonna use him as an example. Well, first off, the ideals that he was proposing, it sucked, right? Whatever he was doing in World War II was, absolutely awful. And I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. Just watch any documentary out there, watch the Holocaust, watch those things, and you can tell that's a period where everything sucked, right? There's a lot of crap, and there's a lot going on there, right? But again, in that case, cancel culture made sense, right? Cancel culture made sense, where you can see on the one hand, other people adore him, want to be with him, and whatever, right? His own citizens and whatever, right? And then it switched, right? Where people realized what was happening and then everyone wanted to see the truth. They turned their backs. Cancel culture came into effect. They wanted to attack him. They wanted to kill him, right? So there you see um, where it happened. But the problem is there is that, or the one thing that I wanted to hint there is that that was a result of many mistakes that people saw. It took all those mistakes for people to realize, and that's all that evidence. That's what's good about cancel culture as well, is that um with enough evidence people can think clearly, right? Even if they were Hitler's sugar daddy or whatever, right? People can actually turn around and think clearly for themselves, and that's good, right? The thing is with cancel culture now is that it just takes one mistake to ridicule everything. Now again, back to Will Smith, right? I'm not gonna take one side or another, but if you really think about it, right? One slap, and was that justified to ruin his entire career as an actor, comedian, or whatever, right? Was that justified in honesty? Because why should we do that just because we have this own opinion? For example, if you're for him, right, you can kind of see where, again, it's an offensive comment that was made against his wife and where that came from, right? But again, not wanting to convince the other group, but if you really think about it, right, are we really divided on the issue because he had done so unprofessionally, or are we doing it because we envy the person, right? Or we want the success, or we just don't like the person in general because of other things, right? So again, that one tiny mistake and then the whole world turns against you. Yeah, that's not right. It's like justifying bullying. And again, back to mental health, right? If cancel culture is just a fancy way to say bullying, right, I wouldn't go for it. Like, I wouldn't advocate it, and I'd be totally against what's going on with cancel culture, right? And that's what I think the person's trying to highlight. It's more of bullying, right? With cancel culture, probably he heard it in school or college or whatever, right? And then he heard how cancel culture was going around, and how people can just, as a group, diss this person because they think it's funny or because it's needed, right? And I think that's usually the case, and I think that's what the person was trying to mention. You know, Literally, should you push away someone because of one mistake, right? Because probably to the person, this sounds like bullying, right? And Evan knows I hate bullying. As a teacher, I hate when that happens, right? Because it's unjustified for both ends, right? The person who's receiving it shouldn't have done that, and or shouldn't have received it, and the person who did it shouldn't have resorted to that. It just ultimately led to that, right? Because cancel culture is kind of sounding like bullying. But I'm gonna be honest, guys, with my opinion on that. So my advice with cancel culture, first thing you gotta remember, and probably I don't need to list this down, but I just want to mention it clearly. So I know that cancel culture is different from bullying, right? Because bullying is in a setting, in a school setting or any setting, job setting or whatever, right? When it comes down to bullying, again, so it really depends as well on the person, right? When it comes down to bullying, again, it's always put in a negative light because there's something happening there that's negative, right? There's always something happening there when it comes down to bullying, whether the person who's the bully is hurt, or on the other end where the bully or the one who's being bullied gets hurt, right? So it's always painted in a negative light. But with cancel culture, again, you know, there wouldn't, for bullying, there's always cons. there's always cons when it comes down to it, right? Bullying is never justified, and really there's needs to be a solution for that, right? But when it comes down to cancel culture, why are there pros? Because honestly, it really depends on the issue at hand, right? It really depends on, how much weight an issue has over another, right? And, again, it's fine if you take sides, it's fine if you have your own opinions, it's fine if you do so, right? And you feel that something needs to be said, but watch your action very carefully, right? Because cancel culture can quickly become bullying. And that's something that I noticed, right? I've seen cancel culture go horribly, horribly wrong, right? I've seen it go horribly wrong when it comes down to that, right? With Will Smith and Chris Rock, again, that's divisive, and I don't want to say much on that or advocate for one side or another, right? Again, cancel culture can really decide for that, right? And, now that I see them now, I honestly don't see too much of an impact apart from Will Smith not really being in the Academy Awards for 10 years, right? But it didn't seem as though you can just ditch him, right? You can't just ditch that, right? And with Chris Rock, like I said, things happened there and it was still unjustified, right? But honestly, I think they shouldered off what was happening, and again, you don't really see it as much often, so that shows you that that part ended, right? And again, cancel culture helps you to highlight other things, right? For example, in other cases like Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, right? When I saw the trials, and I saw a replay of it a couple weeks ago, and I was looking at that, I'm like, man, it's obvious who we're siding on. And whether you're a Depper or a Herder or whatever, right? Whichever side you're on, again, you can kind of tell from the arguments that things kind of went nowhere for one side. Literally, if the argument was more solid, and if the lawyer for which group I'm talking about was a little bit better, maybe there could have been justification. But I just saw the truth, and like I said, here at Convos we advocate for the truth, and the truth is one person had way more evidence than the other side. And not just because the other lawyer is more compelling, but literally because there was enough to say this was nonsense, right? The trial was nonsensical, right? And again, with the damage that happened, right, there's still some recovery periods, but one thing's for sure is cancel culture really justified which is the real group, right? Which is the real person who is the one who deserves the respect, and who deserves to come out free. So looking at that, cancel culture help. But again, it really depends on two things, which is the weight of the issue as well as ourselves, right? And why do I say ourselves? Is because we got the power to influence cancel culture. We got the power with our own opinion to just have put in a little bit of faith or a little bit of doubt, right? And we can literally change the way cancel culture can affect the way an outcome goes, right? Whether it be the Johnny Depp trial, or whether we decide with Will Smith and Chris Rock, again, really depends. But cancel culture is that. That's why there are pros, because there's a reason things need to be said, right? Just like with mental health, right? Your emotions, your feelings, you feel that because you feel that, right? That's the truth. Same thing with cancel culture. You want to express, right? And then when you see, what I like also about cancel culture is you get to analyze other people's opinions. And I know I said, don't let other opinions offend you or whatever, right? But you don't have to let them offend you. Just look at them and say, are these people making compelling statements? Are these people actually saying what's logical, right? Something that can make sense to you or to anyone else involved, right? So with cancel culture, there's more knowledge, right? But just don't fall into the trap of bandwagoning on the wrong idea, right? So again, look at the weight of the issue with cancel culture, right? That's how you approach it, at a very objective and at a very careful manner. So look at cancel culture very carefully. Look at it and look at the issue at hand. And then check your own opinion, right? Look for whoever's opinion sounds logical, right? Literally, if you want an example, go to the YouTube comments. Some people are like saying something in another language, but if you translate it, it makes sense. Meanwhile, some people can say something in English, but then it's just BS, right? So literally, check out the other arguments, right? Check what's happening over there, and be objective with cancel culture, right? Because again, it will move on, right? That's the thing with cancel culture is it moves on, and we get on with our lives, right? And if it happens, oh, okay, good. This is in the spotlight. Make our own decision, and hopefully things move on, right? Unless it's something horrible, then of course, we gotta fix that. And that's what I love about cancel culture is where if the right issues are talked about, it is a powerful tool. Cancel culture really helps because it gives other people a voice, right? Just be sure don't fall for the traps of not using your brain, right? Bring your brain when it comes down to going into a controversy, because literally that's what helps justify an argument. You know what I mean? So again, my opinion with cancel culture, again, this doesn't seem like a mental health issue to the person. But first off, if whoever the person is out there, if you think bullying and cancel culture are the same, they actually aren't. Bullying is more negative, and really negative for the bully, negative for the one who's being bullied, right? So that right there is a telltale sign that something's different. Cancel culture is okay. It is good if everyone's using their heads, right? You got to look at the situation, and you also got to look as well at yourself, right? You got to look at yourself and say, am I looking at things carefully? Am I looking at things, looking at the facts, right? And making sure that my own opinion is not backed up by emotion, right? Because, you know, if you say, for example, I'm for Chris Rock, but then you have a crush on him, kind of derails the argument, right? So again, look as well at yourself when you think about cancel culture and your own argument, all right? So that's what I think with cancel culture. It's not completely BS, but at the same time, it can be. It's up to us how we feel about it, right? Because again, cancel culture relies on everyone's opinion, right? If you have that little bit of doubt, or if you have that little bit of faith in an argument or whatever, right, you can change it, right? And that's my advice to you guys out there, right? Don't be afraid to share your own voice. You know, like a comment, a YouTube comment can go away, right? Again, it can go away, and your voice is out there. At least it can change things around, right? And again, watch out very carefully and think about your own ideals, because honestly, we need to compromise more, right? If you want to make cancel culture better, use your head. And that's all it is, right? And again, before I end off this episode, I'm gonna go ahead and play the soundtrack. Found it recently, just a couple of days ago. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, and that's gonna wrap it up for this episode of Convos. Again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I know this wasn't entirely related to a mental health issue. Again, it doesn't have to be, but again, I want to keep you guys not only in the know of the truth, but also in the know period, right? So we want to keep you guys more knowledgeable. And if you guys didn't know what cancel culture was, I didn't know what it was as much either until I did the podcast, and now I realize this is what it means, right? So again, with cancel culture, it should be the case that again, it's not always negative, right? Clearly, it can become negative, and we can be so stupid at one point, right? But the idea is that cancel culture can give other people a voice, can get the issues out there in the world, and we can find a way to say, hey, we need to take action, right? And it's a culture, right? It changes, it evolves, we grow along with it, and that's what I love, right? We all have our own opinions, and as long as we respect each other for those opinions and look at things carefully, knowledgeably, right? Logically, not stupidly, we be okay, right? So again, if you guys have any other comments, please leave them down in the comments section, or please PM me and DM me if you want to touch base on something with me, or if you want something else to be featured in another episode. Again, I'm reading down the list one by one, so hopefully I get down to the thing that you want me to talk about. And please be patient with me. Again, sometimes I'm with a guest, sometimes I'm doing it solo, and even then with the editing, I'm also solo. So really it boils down to that, and just the time and effort, but I still have the love, sweat, and tears to put in for you guys, and I'm absolutely loving every minute of this. My voice may not say it, my voice may not sound like it in the recording, but if all else fails, just know that my heart's out there in the right place. Okay, right, so thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please like, share, sub, much love. I will see you at the next episode. This is Mr. T signing off here in the studio. All right, peace.